UFC is back in New York, baby. That's right. We in the Mecca, MSG, for a fight that, to be honest, I don't know if anyone even cares about at this point. But let's get into it. First fight of the night, we got Mauricio Ruffy taking on James Llontop. So Ruffy's 10-1, that is 1-0 in the UFC. Llontop is 14-4, but he's 0-2 in the UFC. Ruffy has won 5 fights in a row, all of them coming by knockout. Llontop was on a 12-fight win streak before coming to the UFC, but as I mentioned, is winless since then. Ruffy, 28 years old. Llontop, 25 years old. A lot of hype around Ruffy. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to take the over 1.5. It's minus 150. Going to parlay it. I'll get to it later. Ruffy's hit it in 2 of his last 3 fights, and Llontop's hit it in 12 of his 18 pro fights, including 8 of his last 10 fights. So I like that. It's a little risky, but we're going to roll with it. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, you'd have to parlay it, but Ruffy by KO, minus 145. All 10 of his pro wins have come by KO. Only risk here, Llontop never been KO'd before, so, maybe he's got a chin on him. Another prop I like that you also have to parlay, fight end by KO. It's minus 250. All 11 of Ruffy's career fights have ended by knockout, and 7 of Llontop's 14 pro wins have ended by knockout. And another prop, the over 2.5. It's plus 120. Don't love it. Llontop has hit it in 2 of his last 3, but Ruffy never hit it in those 11 career fights. As I mentioned, they all ended by knockout. Next fight of the night, we got Viviane Araujo taking on Karine Silva. So Araujo, she's 12-6. That is 6-5 in the UFC. Silva, 18-4. She's 4-0 in the UFC. Araujo has lost 3 of her last 5. All 5 of those fights did go the distance. Silva has won 9 fights in a row, 8 of those ending by finish. Araujo will be 38 in about 10 days from now, and Silva still just 30 years old. I'm going to take Karine Silva here, money line, minus 255. Gonna parlay it. I'll get to it later. She's undefeated in the UFC. She's looked like a killer, no pun intended. That is her nickname. Araujo not beaten anyone currently on the UFC roster since 2020. So in the last 4 years, no wins over anyone currently in the UFC. If you guys are looking for anything else, take parlay piece over 2.5. It's minus 250. Araujo has hit it in 10 straight fights. Silva's only hit it 3 times in 22 fights, but she did hit it in her last fight. So there's that. Another prop I like a lot is Silva by finish, plus 200. 17 of her 18 wins have come by finish, and Araujo's been finished before. But it is women's fight. They normally go long. So another prop I like is Silva by decision, minus 105. Only 1 of her 18 wins have come by decision, but it was her last fight. And Araujo's last 5 losses have come by decision. Next fight of the night, we got Bo Nickal taking on Paul Craig. Bo Nickal is 6-0. That is 3-0 in the UFC. Paul Craig is 17-8-1. That is 11-8-1 in the UFC. Bo is obviously undefeated, so he's won 6 in a row. All 6 of those ending before the 3rd round, so he's never even been to the 3rd. Paul has lost 4 of his last 5, and unfortunately was finished in 3 of those losses. Bo Nickal still just 28 years old. Paul Craig, 36 years old. Dude, Bo Nickal's such a big favorite in this fight. It's hard to find good props on it. I'm going to just take a flyer on the over 1.5 here. It's plus 160. Bo's only hit it once in 6 pro fights, but that did come in his last fight, and he's stepping up competition each time. Maybe Paul Craig's going to take it slow with him. Paul has hit it in 3 of his last 5, so I don't know, dude. Like I said, I'm taking a flyer on it. We'll see what happens. If you guys are looking for anything else to take, I mentioned the prices on this are just absurd. Bo Nickal by finish is minus 700. You better throw that in a parlay. All 6 of his wins have come by finish, and Craig has been finished 7 times, including his last 3 losses. Bo Nickal by KO, minus 175. Still a hefty price tag on it, but all things considered, pretty low. I like the KO here because 2 of his 4 wins have come by KO, and Paul Craig is really good off his back. Nickal might be more successful with the ground and pound finish here rather than a sub. Also, Paul Craig's been knocked out 5 times, including his last loss. So it's totally on the table. If you think Paul Craig's going to win, just take him by sub, dude. It's plus 1,100. It's crazy. 13 of his 17 career wins have come by submission. Obviously, though, Nickal being undefeated, never been submitted before, but it's Paul Craig, man. If anyone could do it, it might be him. That's worth a little flyer. Plus 1,100. I don't know. Co-main event. We got the rematch that I don't really know if anyone was asking for, but whatever. It's a good fight. Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler. So their first fight, as I just mentioned, was at UFC 262 in May of 2021. For the vacant lightweight title, Charles Oliveira did end up winning that fight by TKO in round number 2. Oliveira, though, he's 34-10 with 1 no contest. That is 22-10 with 1 no contest in the UFC. Chandler is 23-8. That is 2-3 in the UFC. Oliveira has won 3 of his last 5, and both of those losses came to the champ, Islam Makhachev, and the number 1 contender, Arman Tsarukyan. So he's losing to the best of the best. Chandler has lost 3 of his last 5 and has not fought in 2 years. So it's kind of against it here. Oliveira, 35 years old. Chandler, now 38, stepping in there. Again, I'm going to take a flyer on the over 1.5 here. You're going to give me a plus money over 1.5. For smaller guys, I usually end up taking it. It's plus 135. Oliveira's hit it in 3 of his last 5, and Chandler's hit it in 2 of his last 3. Sure, their last fight didn't hit it, but I don't know, man. It's on the table. I'm going to ride with it. We'll see what happens. If you're looking for anything else to take, Charles Oliveira money line, right? Minus 238. You'd have to parlay him. But he's the former champ. He's won 12 of his last 14 fights, and I already mentioned who those 2 losses came to, Islam and Arman. Chandler's only win in the last 3 years was Tony, and he lost round 1 of that fight on all 3 judges' scorecards before getting the early knockout in round 2. So Chandler was losing against Tony. That's all I'm saying. If you want a little less off of it, Oliveira by finish, minus 200. You'd obviously still have to parlay it, but 31 of his 34 pro wins have come by finish, including his last 4 wins. And Chandler has been finished 5 times, including his last fight. Oliveira by KO, plus 215. Doesn't seem that likely. Only 10 of his 34 wins have come by KO, but he did KO Michael Chandler in the first fight. So if you want to do the old rinse and repeat, there you go. Chandler's also lost by KO 4 times before. And Oliveira by sub. Anytime you could get Charles Oliveira by sub at plus money, plus 135. 21 of his 34 wins have come by sub. That's 62%. And Chandler was just subbed in his last fight. Crazy. Main event, we got Jon Jones taking on Stipe Miocic. So Jones is 27-1 with 1 no contest. That is 21-1 with 1 no contest in the UFC. Stipe is 20-4. That is 14-4 in the UFC. Jon Jones only fought twice in the last 4 years and has not fought in almost 2 years. Miocic has only 2 fights in the last 4 years and is coming off a KO loss almost 4 years ago. Jones, 37 years old. Stipe, 42 years old. I'm taking Jon Jones here. He's minus 600. I'm going to parlay it with the over 1.5 in Ruffy, Llontop, and Karine Silva money line. It's plus 171. I mean, dude, Jon Jones, he's basically undefeated. He's been way more active than Stipe. Super well-rounded. We haven't seen Jon in 2 years, but because he was injured, we haven't seen Stipe in almost 4 years, and we don't really know why. Was he training? What's he doing? He's a firefighter, man. Is he even training? I don't know. Riding with Jon Jones here. Looking for anything else? Take the over 2.5 as plus money, plus 131. Jon has hit it in 8 of his last 10 fights, and Stipe's only hit it in 4 of his last 10, but he has hit it in 3 of his last 5. Jon Jones by finish, minus 300. 17 of his 27 pro wins have come by finish, including his lone heavyweight win. Stipe's been finished 3 times, including his last fight. And Jones by decision, plus 425. Only 10 of his 27 wins have come by decision, but 3 of his last 4 wins have come by decision.
I'm worth 100,000 like Woodrow. When a ball call me Wilson, going overboard at the Hilton.